To develop pivoting, we're going to help to shape it and shape the player's learning by letting her first go through a progression of blocked pivots. But we're going to end every pivot with a shot. To increase the enjoyment of working on pivoting, an important fundamental in basketball, we want to make it more enjoyable for the learner. So instead of pivoting to pass in mindless repetitions, we're going to end every repetition with a shot. To start with, she's just going to block practice, meaning she's going to do continuous repetitions. To start with, left foot, front pivot. And she's just going to repeat repetitive repetitions of blocked left foot, front pivot. We're not focused on shooting success, we're focused on the fundamental that we're trying to develop, which is pivoting. The fact that the shot goes in or not right now is irrelevant because our focus is on pivoting. But at the same time, we're mixing skills so that she gets repetitions that are more game-like, because in the game you would combine pivoting and shooting, pivoting and passing. Once she's mastered a certain amount of success, and this is a question, do you need to have skill perfection before you move on? The question I would pose to you all the time is, how good does the skill need to be before you start to apply it more and more? Well, we just wish for block practice that she has an initial concept of what pivoting is. After that, we want to get away from these mindless blocked repetitions, and we want to go to the next progression could be serial, meaning we go A, B, C, D, and then back to A. So she's going to do a front pivot, left foot shot, a right foot front pivot shot, a left foot reverse pivot shot, and now a right foot reverse pivot shot. And now she's going to go back and repeat that sequence after she shoots. Now she can go continuously in that sequence, and she can follow that pattern. This can be done on her own. She doesn't need me here as a coach, and that's one of the important parts of this, is once I put her in a situation where she can work on something, she can do these things on her own, so we don't take time away from practice time to be able to do that. The progression after serial, we go from blocked to serial, and then we want to mix it, and as fast as possible we want to go to mixing and what's called random practice. We want her on each repetition to have to think. So on each repetition, she's going to think because she doesn't know what's coming. There's no memorization as there is in blocked, where she does the same thing over and over again, and there's no memorization of a pattern as there is with serial practice. She has to figure it out on the fly and think. So to start with, she on her own can do this and make sure that it's random, decide whatever she wants, and pivot and shoot. Now, if the learner is having a hard time figuring out what to do and remembering all of the types of pivots and possibilities, then I can cue her with words, or I can cue her with body language in some kind, some type of hand signal or something like that. You can make up whatever you want. The key is initially just to give them a representation of what they're supposed to do, and then hopefully put them in a situation like she just did, where she can do it on her own. If she couldn't do it on her own, then we do something like this, face that way, left foot front pivot. Right foot reverse pivot. Left foot front pivot. Right foot front pivot. And ideally, I don't want to give her the same pattern. I want to mix it up, sometimes repeat them, sometimes don't repeat them. And the important part that you might notice here is she's going to struggle at times because she's going to have to pause to think. This is a positive in the learning process. We want to give them time to pause, and we want to give them time to think so that they can figure it out on their own. This leads to more permanence in the learning process because she has to think on each repetition. Thinking, recall, triggering the recall process in terms of remembering what she's done previously helps with retention. It improves retention. When she does blocked reps over and over and over again, then she's not thinking. So we're not challenging this retrieval process of retrieving prior information that she's done before. Now, as you notice, we kept this very simple in terms of the direction she's facing. The progressions that we'd go to is she can face different directions, again, early in learning. We want her to be able to figure it out, just go into mixed reps, and we want her to figure it out. The important part is now she's starting to think about the relationship of her body to the rim on her pivots. Again, if she was on her own, she can rebound on her own. But she wants to try to apply those pivots. If you're ending up too close to the basket, what is a solution?
Hook shooting, or a different method of shooting.
Excellent. Effort answering. So releasing the ball somewhere different outside your body than the top of your head. And what's another solution is to start closer or farther from the rim. Which one?
Farther.
Great effort answering. So let's face the camera now and let's do a few reps from that direction, just in mixed ways. And now once she's got an idea of the different locations that she can do pivots from on the floor, then we want to make it even more random and variable, meaning that each time she's going to grab the ball from a different location. Now the easiest way if you're on your own is wherever the ball bounces off the backboard, grab the ball, face a direction, and pivot. Grab the ball, face a direction, and now figure out how to pivot. I could, of course, as a coach, have interjected. I could have given a coaching intervention. I could have corrected her. But instead, you have to leave the learner, once they have an initial idea, to be able to sort some things out on their own. If she didn't know that she was making a mistake, then I could cue her and say, oh, what happened on that pivot? What happened on the first pivot is?
Turn too close to the basket.
And because of that, you traveled to try and self-correct. So she knew that, and she went back and repeated the rep. That's an important part of the learning process that we hope our learners get to, is that they can error detect and error correct on their own, and that's a huge part of this. This pivoting process can be done anywhere on the floor. If she's fortunate enough to have someone with her, a sibling or a coach or a parent or someone like that, then we just say we could cue her with any spot. So if I'm here, ready, face me, I pass it to her, and now she pivots. I can rebound it, I can go to a different spot right here, and now she grabs it, and now she can pivot. We can do it in a number of ways to be able to get her to work in really random areas. Again, I could cue her if I want her to work on certain pivots. Reverse pivot. You lost balance on that pivot. What causes you to lose balance? When you're really straight up or when you're really low, are you more balanced?
Really low.
So if you're straight up, you're likely to
Fall.
Exactly like you did. So obviously, these are static pivot situations. What can we add to any type of pivot situation, which is commonly found in a lot of drills where you dribble, jump stop, pivot, and pass. we want to apply the same thing, but we want her to have more fun and more engagement. So instead of a pass, she's going to work on shooting out of her pivots. So now from any location, on her own, she's going to dribble at an angle not towards the basket. And then she's going to jump stop, meaning her 2 feet are going to hit the floor at the same time. And now she's going to execute a pivot to shoot. So we can add the dribble in a really static, still situation where she starts from a static dribble, or we can make it more dynamic so we can incorporate ball handling at the same time and some dribbling. So now when she does it, we want her to add a little bit of a dribble move before she pushes forward into her dribble. And we're working on attacking the basket, but a common problem for youth players especially is they take dribbles not towards the rim. Well, if we know they're going to make those mistakes, then we want to coach them how they're going to get out of that problem situation, which in this case is we're going to teach them how to pivot. Most often they would pivot to pass, and that's a great opportunity to be able to work on second cuts and different types of protection plans. But in this example, we want her again to end it with a shot. So she's going to start with some type of dribble move, push her dribble forward, take 1 or 2 dribbles, jump stop, and attack the basket with a pivot. The more load you add, the more desirable difficulties, the more challenge you add, the more they will struggle. Struggle is important for learning, and that's a part of the learning process. The idea is, does she have a representation of what she's supposed to do? Are you good at it yet?
No.
She's not good at it yet, and yet is the most powerful word in learning. It means that she can get better and she can improve, and that's a normal part of the learning process, and something really important us as coaches have to normalize for players. In summary, pivoting can be done from blocked to serial to random. As quickly as possible, we want to get the learner into the random phase of practice. Even if they struggle more in that phase, they will get more out of those repetitions of not memorizing a pattern and not following an order. So we want them to do it in a random way. Also, we want to add challenge. We loaded challenge in this drill by changing the angle or the direction or the location of the pivots, and by adding a dribble, and by adding a dribble move prior to the dribble into a jump stop. So we're mixing learning together so that the learner has to constantly retrieve prior learning, prior information, so that the learning can become more permanent through the retrieval process.